So going from that, Logan, this interview that the Surgeon General had, when we're talking about the incredibly abysmal mental health outcomes that we're facing today in our society, one of the things that was brought up as a potential explanation was this idea of hustle culture. And I'll tell you here's a quote that the Surgeon General said. So it says, "Young people tell me they feel caught up in hustle culture. What they're saying to me was that they felt that they were being asked to chase certain objectives, getting a job with a fancy title, making a lot of money, becoming famous, acquiring power. And not only did many of them say that they were exhausted, but they weren't sure that was going to bring them happiness." So so reading that statement, I really wanted to have this discussion about hustle culture today. So let's start here, Logan. How would you define hustle culture? What does it mean to you?
Hustle culture. How would I define it? I mean, I guess it's that desire to always want more. It's never enough. That's kind of how in my mind I define hustle culture. It really hits home close to, I think, both of us. Both of us clearly had to hustle to get into medical school, had to hustle in medical school to gain a psychiatry residency slot. And now clearly, we're trying to go above and beyond and do, this content creation relevant to mental health. We're definitely part of this culture too. So I think it's always like wanting more. And I think it's not all bad, right? It clearly got us into positions where, of course, as residents, we're not financially successful, but we're on the road to financial success. Absolutely, right? We're going to be okay. I don't think, though, it's all good either, right? There definitely can be an element of detriment, of harm, of, hurting yourself mentally at the expense of trying to hustle for maybe more money, that fancier car, those better clothes, that bigger house, whatever it may be. So I think kind of one of the treatments to hustle culture is this idea of gratitude, being thankful for what you do have, being thankful for the life that you do experience. And I also think, in this world, we value money so much, right? But as I age, and I think everyone kind of knows this proverb, but, money is not our most valuable currency. In my experience, it's really time, right? And I really love doing this podcast with you, and I love my job, but I also want to make sure that I still have the appreciation of, I don't want to spend my entire life hustling towards this mental health career. I want to experience other things that I also find valuable, like spending time with my wife, my family, my hobbies that I really enjoy. It's all a balance.
Right. And I think sometimes, when hustle culture does end up becoming toxic, it's usually due to that loss of balance, right? You can teeter so far one way that you lose all semblance of your humanity, all semblance of any kind of sense of well-being, and you become so consumed by it. So I've thought a lot about this, Logan. And like you said, like money is very important in our society, right? Not just our society, it's all over the world, societies across time. Money's undoubtedly been something that's important for the entirety of humanity, I would argue. So, we have to ask ourselves, at what point is it enough, right? And I think today that question is a lot more difficult to answer than I would argue during previous generations. We look around social media, right? Everybody has a phone with us. We see Instagram. We see how everybody's, portraying the best aspects of their lives, not only just our friends, but then we see people from all over the world, flashing nice cars, nice watches, maybe with an incredible body, whatever it may be, whatever you're hustling towards. We see the extreme version of hyper successful people in that arena. And we feel the desire and even the need sometimes to achieve that goal. And to that end, hustle culture, I would define it as you're spending every single minute, every single day trying to attain that goal at the detriment of every single aspect of your life. And it can be very exhausting at times. But at the same time, when we look at these individuals that we're trying to aspire to on social media, that's not the picture that we see. We don't look at them and say, oh, how exhausting it must be for that individual. But rather, we only see the success. Our thought process is, what what can I do to attain that level of success, whatever that may be. So I'm going to give you an example, Logan. I think a lot of the times, in terms of money, we kind of think about, like the CEOs of the biggest companies, in the US as, having attained this American dream, right? They have, it seems like, an infinite amount of resources. They have huge followings on social media, so they have a lot of social capital and also economic capital. And a lot of people want to be just like them. But at the same time, I don't think what we see is the kind of life that they live. When we talk about these CEOs, a lot of the times they're putting in like 80, 90-hour work weeks. These are hyper competitive individuals. And, in terms of work ethic, they're like 1% of the 1%. And all that stuff comes at a cost. So they actually did a poll. They looked at CEOs, and I want to get you the exact numbers. Okay. So CEOs are depressed at 2 times the rate of the general population.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, externally, we can say like these people have it all together. They have lives that we're supposed to be envious of. But when we actually ask them the questions about their mental health, a lot of them they're suffering. They're not having a good time. And I don't think there's a way to attain happiness or contentment in life when you're chasing this goal that only like 1% of 1% of people can attain, right? A goal like that, a goal that exclusive, it requires essentially every single part of you. And when you give that kind of effort to this end, other aspects of your life undoubtedly takes a hit. And thus, they're depressed at extremely high rates compared to the general population.